before the fight. Obviously, there's elements of nerves, there's adrenaline building. Once I got to the top of the ramp and the music started playing, all of that just went away. Chandy said to me, she's like, when you're walking down the ramp and you came into the ring, I don't know who that was in the ring. I haven't seen those eyes before. As a skinny fat kid, felt like I was quite a timid, weak guy. I started boxing and I did a few sessions. I had no power in me to inflict any damage, but this guy, every punch he hit was sending me flying. And after that sparring session, I never went back. The morning of the fight, I woke up and that memory just kind of came in my head. And I was like, wow, that's...
People often say this thing like comfortable is such a
dangerous place to be.
Yeah, it's dangerous, and it's like kind of like a toxic phrase because it's a self-limiting belief, right?
When you put yourself in circumstances where you regularly do hard shit, you start developing confidence that you can do pretty much anything that you want to do.
Failing is not an option because you know, even if you're edging towards failure, you kind of back yourself to figure it out.
You find yourself like every day, there's a little bit of fear in your life, in a good way, because you're pushing the absolute limits with your career, your relationships, and your health.
You should definitely try something like this out because it unlocks this laser focus. You get it from physical things, you get it from physical challenge.
Explore the extremes of human capability. And I think in that extreme, you can find that peace and that calm that I think we're all looking for.
Living at the pinnacle.
Living at the pinnacle. All right, let's go.
How's the ribs, Akash?
Probably don't make me laugh because the ribs are feeling a bit tender.
Yeah.
I think in the moment, I didn't feel a thing.
Yeah.
I don't think I felt a thing in the following day either.
Yeah.
As soon as I calmed down and the adrenaline got kicked off, I woke up on Sunday and I was like, oh shit, they are not in a good place.
Can you take like a deep breath or anything? Does it hurt?
Or? If I take a deep breath and go all the way deep into my lungs, then I can feel like that. I think the lungs are basically pushing out on the ribs. So I think there's a bit of tenderness there. For anyone listening or watching this, I just caught some body kicks and I just ate them. I didn't bother blocking them. I told Samir, our coach, this morning, he rang me up. He said, bro, you okay?
Yeah.
Because obviously I've cancelled all my sessions this week. And I said, yeah, just ribs. He's like, bro, I told you to block.
Yeah, you know, I've been watching.
At least he learned the hard way.
Yeah. I don't know. We didn't really get many, I don't know. I'd say I checked maybe like 3 kicks in the whole thing. I think kind of all just went out the window.
Well, Samir did say, white collar, no one blocks anything.
Yeah.
And I think he was right. I think it was like 5 or 6 body kicks. And obviously a power. And I don't think my ribs have been hit, like probably yet in this fight camp. And if they have, they've just been tapped. So same spot. And I think they're just very tender, very sore spot. It was me thinking on Saturday, yeah, he can't walk. I've got him badly.
Yeah.
Fair play to him. He got me back. Got me back equally hard. Apart from that, though, I was happy that my face is completely fine. That was my big worry. I was thinking, my face catches, black eye.
Yeah.
I'm out of camera action for a bit, or things aren't going to look too good.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with that. And I just caught a bit of a dodgy elbow just from landing quite badly. So when he did that bear hug and threw me down, I think I landed on my elbow and I felt it hyperextend. So in the fight, I remember feeling that one. Didn't feel the ribs. I felt that one. I was like, whoa, that one isn't good. But I just, in the moment, you just carry on, right? So yeah, hopefully it's not out for too long. Everyone I'm speaking to though is saying ribs are minimum 3 weeks. So
yeah,
I don't know. Let's see.
You can't do anything about them, right? You can't put them in.
Nah, you can't even do anything. So the physio said, all you can do is time.
Yeah.
So let's see. I'm gonna give some light cardio a go though. I think that should be okay.
I gave some light cardio a go yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. 26 minutes on the level 30 on the stepper.
Yeah, I don't know if that's light. How's your body feeling?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I went to the gym on Saturday. After the fight, I think I just needed for me it was more about I felt like my body was just full of adrenaline still.
Yeah.
I went out after the fight. You guys went home.
Yeah.
So I went to the after fight thing. I didn't get enough sleep. Maybe I kept thinking about I wish I'd got
what you could have done.
Yeah, what I could have done. So then I thought, let me go to the gym and help taper off a little bit. It worked, and then I kind of chilled out. But then Saturday night I went to UFC. And so then the energy went straight back up. There's some really good fights towards the end. Sunday I just completely chilled out. But yesterday then I needed to get back in the gym again. So I've been okay, but really got no injuries at all. Got a little mark above my eye.
To be honest, the amount of punches you guys have both thrown, I was like, I don't know how you haven't got anything. I haven't got anything.
Sorry, man. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because I think there was a lot of glancing blows rather than direct hits.
Yeah.
So in the sense of that, it was okay. So that's quite an interesting thing for me as well. Post fight, my mind and everything has been a lot more active than it was pre-fight. one of the things that are kind of like, you know, along this journey of like learning to be a fighter and all that kind of stuff, this concept of mushin. So people kept asking me how you feeling before the fight, and I just kept forwarding them that wiki page. I think I sent it to you as well.
Yeah.
So this like feeling of like emptiness, but it's not emptiness to the point where you're like disconnected. It's emptiness in the sense that like, you're gonna go into battle like you kind of like disconnecting yourself or disassociating yourself from everything, and you're kind of just focused on like, I'm gonna be in there. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be, thinking. I just want to be reacting. Which I don't know. I've kind of like got into that state before as well, where it's like hyper focused on like certain objectives, or like, you want to deliver something. You probably have like some parts of like when you grow in your business and you're focusing on other things, like you kind of just enter this trance and you're just like, I think you actually you have talked about this before. It's like, is it a trance, or is it like just in the zone?
Yeah.
I've forgotten what phrase you used.
The void.
The void. Yeah. The void. So I kind of like felt like that. But what was super interesting was like I was feeling like that, but as soon as I saw you get slammed, all of that went out of the window.
Out the window.
Yeah, I was like, I remember like the moments before that. I'm like telling everyone. I said my dad's like quite into it. I was saying to my dad, like, don't distract Akash. Like, yeah, try and stay calm. I'm saying to Channi, don't be nervous. Like, be calm, be calm. Like, you just got to focus. He's got to look at you and like see strength. Man, 10 seconds into your fight, you get slammed. I'm like holding the bottom rope, jumping up and down, swearing my head off. Samir had to tell me off. He told me off. He was like, I just go away. Like, he was like, you're being it's too much. I was like, damn, I've got told off.
To be honest, it was pretty nuts. Like, because when we were upstairs, before the fight, obviously there's elements of nerves and there's adrenaline building. But I found like once I got to the top of the ramp and the music started playing, like all of that just went away. All the fear or like the nerves or anything like that may have been there before, just suddenly went away, and it was just completely like in the zone.
Yeah.
And Channi said to me, she's like, when you're walking down the ramp and you came into the ring, it's like, I don't know who that was in the ring, but I haven't seen those eyes before.
Yeah.
Because you're just so super dialed in.
Yeah.
And then 20 seconds in, I get slammed to the floor. And I was like, holy shit. It felt like my lights got knocked out because it was quite a powerful slammy, like slammy hard on the floor. Yeah. And I think I've been sweeped all through this prep, right? In Thailand, I was getting sweeped all the time. And that guy even sweeped me 2 weeks ago in sparring, right? So and I think I know that that's one of my weaknesses, getting sweeped a lot. Mm-hmm. But this one was a hard sweep, and I was like, shit, 20 seconds in, the crowd went bonkers, right? When that happened, all I heard was just like roaring sounds.
Yeah.
I was like, I just need to get up as soon as possible. And that's when I went on the low kick assault, right?
Onslaught of low kicks, yeah.
But I think it was a good, like, I'm almost like, I'm glad that it happened in the way it did, because that's one of those things that can easily throw you off, right? You get thrown like that.
Yeah.
And even though it's not like that damaging from a body perspective, it's more just a mental game, right? Because it's that first blow, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's the like you got like the wind knocked out of you and you're not on your feet.
Yeah.
But, like mentally, like how do you recover from that? But the thing is, you slammed, but you were straight back up. Like
just flew back up.
Yeah, flew back up. You knew you had to get back up, which is really good. Like had you like started to think about like why am I on the floor?
Yeah. Then your doubts start kicking in.
Then you would have been on the back foot, but you kind of like stood up, and then that's it. Leg kick. Yeah, 50 leg kicks after that, right?
Bloody hell! Honestly, like he's been messaging me this week saying, "Oh yeah, my leg, I can barely walk."
I'm speaking from experience, like, but I took those leg kicks in Thailand. I was out for like
was only a few as well.
Yeah, only a couple that I took. But yeah, you got a big leg kick on you, so I was surprised to even see him go on the night out afterwards. Like,
I don't know how he kept it up.
Yeah,
I don't know how he kept it going. How did you feel like backstage before like the fight and like keeping your cool, keeping calm? Because one of our fellow fight camp. What's the word? Participants
or what?
One of our fellow fight camp teammates. We said we're going to record a podcast, and he said, I'd love to know how you guys kept your cool, because one of the things we were trying to help him with is just chilling out.
Yeah.
Because I think my man literally took a week off work and was just stressed out to the max about the fight. But we were just there just trying to keep him cool. And obviously, he did better than all of us. He knocked his opponent out in 1 minute, 11 seconds. So, big shout out to Adam there. But, how did you keep your cool backstage? Because I think Sharm texted you after saying coolest man in the room, right?
Yeah. Like even my like kind of entrance music was like pretty calming.
Yeah.
It was all designed to just like keep me in the zone or like help me enter that void like Zen state. I think for me the calmness came from the fact that I could like trust my training. I knew that in the weeks like building up to this, I had done as much as possible given like my set of circumstances. Like work day can be like 12 hours long. I can I was training like 3 hours in the evening. We went on holiday, but really we just trained for 5 hours a day. I've been getting like the cardio in. I've been getting like weight training in, all that. So I think, and then training with Samir, obviously, like big shout out to Samir. Like he's probably like hands down one of the best coaches I've ever met, and that's in like all walks of life.
Yeah.
So I think because I knew that I'd done the work, so everything was calm because I was like, no matter what, you always go back down to like how good you've practiced something or how good you've trained. And I knew that I could like kind of rely on that. I know it's only been a few months I'm talking like I'm like some, veteran Muay Thai fighter, but even the 3 or 4 months that we've done, it's been at such like intensity and it's been so all encompassing. Like I was describing it today to someone at work, like it just, all I could think about is Muay Thai, Muay Thai, Muay Thai. Even like now, all I'm thinking about is Muay Thai. Sent you that thing from the gym yesterday. They'd put that thing up that said like International Day of Happiness, and people were writing like puppies, dogs, and I'm like right in the middle. I've written what makes you happy is like Muay Thai, right? It's like even in those kind of moments, I'm just thinking about Muay Thai. So I don't know. I guess because I had like made a strong commitment to it, I knew that I'd put the prep work in. That's what drove all the feelings of calm. Even in like upstairs, being around all the fighters and stuff like that, it's not like we were like in like our own rooms or anything. Like you're in a busy environment, a lot of nerves flying around, a lot of different kinds of energy around you. But I wasn't even getting distracted by it really. Like I was just kind of focused on myself. I was having conversations with people, but like I don't know, it wasn't playing into my head at all.
I remember one guy came up to me. Like, he came up to me after his fight, and he lost. This guy came up to me, he lost, and he started moaning to me, saying, he didn't kick like he did in sparring. He's like he held back in the practice spar. I was like, dude, it was a fight. Then he started like, it was on borderline tears. I said, dude, just get away from me. Like, I don't need this right now. I'm about to fight in two hours. Like that energy is not what I want around me. But I think the reason why you felt like that and why I felt like that as well is when you put yourself in circumstances where you regularly do hard shit, you start developing confidence that you can do pretty much anything that you want to do. The hardest thing is making the choice of what you actually want to do in your life. But when you set your mind to it, it's a case of you back yourself in doing it. And like whilst I had like the nerves and the fears and the adrenaline, at the same time, once I got in that ring, I was like, I ain't getting knocked out here.
No.
And I'm probably not going to... I knew I wasn't going to lose. I didn't know the draw was... I didn't even know draw was an option.
No, neither did I.
I didn't actually know that was a thing.
I was really annoyed by draw.
Yeah, I saw your face afterwards, right? Your face looked like, oh, what's a draw? I didn't know a draw was a thing. But I'm glad that the judges said afterwards, I was like, if it was a professional fight, you guys would have edged it, but because it's charity, you have to draw it.
Yeah.
But I think when you do like regular things, hard shit on a regular basis, you just start backing yourself in more and more things that you do.
Yeah.
And I think that's what allowed me to stay calm when I was backstage or in the moment. We have people coming up to us saying, oh, why are you guys so calm?
We got that a lot, to be honest. Even when we went to the sparring, right? Like somebody commented that he felt that he needed to like up his game or like spar me harder than he was fighting everyone else, just because when he had to spar me and I was in the middle of the ring and not moving, so like completely still, like got this thing of like dominating the center of the ring.
Yeah.
And like just, I don't know, this calmness. It's kind of scary for people, I guess. But yeah, it's all driven by this constantly retesting yourself. I think like it's the Stoic principles, right? So like constantly putting yourself through hardship, whether that's physical hardship, mental hardship, or like, I don't know, testing yourself in terms of like limits of business or academics or whatever it is. I think when you're used to doing that, things like this, I don't know, you kind of trust yourself to get through no matter what.
Yeah,
that's what it is. You trust yourself to get through no matter what. So like failing is not an option because even if you're edging towards failure, you try kind of back yourself to figure it out. Even if it's a fight, you kind of back yourself that I'll just figure it out. So yeah, there's something in that. I don't know, like if people were to take something away from here, it's probably that you should continually test yourself. The moment that you kind of accept that the way things are or what you're doing right now is the norm, and like people often say this thing that I'm comfortable. Like comfortable is such a
dangerous place to be.
Yeah, it's dangerous, and it's like such a it's kind of like a toxic phrase, because like you're comfortable, but that means that it's a self-limiting belief, right? Like, I'm comfortable now, therefore I don't need to do anything else. You should channel your energy into other things, right? And like test yourself in another aspect of like being human. And so for me, it was like I haven't ever tested myself in a ring or in a martial art. So let's explore this kind of way of living.
What do you think is special about martial arts specifically? Like, why do you think you're so obsessed with Muay Thai? Like the day after the fight, I'm like on some YouTube rabbit hole looking at how I improve my switch kick. But
I think.
What do you think about martial arts that's so
I think
cerebral?
I think it's just that thing. It taps into some like primal part of like human existence that other things don't, and it's all encompassing. Like people think that it's like physical only, but it's not. There's a lot of like balance between like
Balan.
Balan, yeah. So, for those that don't know, when you go to train in Thailand, Balan is the way that most of the coaches say balance. But yeah, there's something in that. Like you have to be physically very capable, and mentally you have to be very like strong, and resilient, and able to like pull yourself through. Like your body's giving out, but your mind can like still drive you through.
Well, do you think it's a physical, spiritual expression? So it's like it's spirituality expressed in a physical form.
Yeah, maybe that's a good way to put it. It is. There is something quite spiritual about it. But like for me, definitely towards the last few weeks, it started to become like
spiritual experience.
Yeah, people were like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it's like when you go through the grind, like when you're going to experience soon in fat loss, when those last few weeks where you barely got any body fat left, it becomes that same sort of experience. And I think in the scriptures, they actually, in especially in the Hindi scriptures, they talk about like you can reach that state in 3 different ways. One is through chanting and dancing and singing, that sort of practice. And the second is reading lots of scriptures, and the more wisdom, intellectual approach. And the third is the physical approach. Is taking the may or may not be right on this, but it's the more it's a physical expression to reach that ultimate place. And I know I always find the most peace in my life and in my mind when I'm most physically active and I'm most driven towards a physical goal. Because when I'm pushing myself to that absolute limit in physical capacity, it just unlocks that. You just get this like freedom from thought and freedom from your monkey mind.
Yeah.
That I don't get it from anything else. Like if I spend too long in a journal, too long in books, my mind just starts racing with ideas and overthinking, and it doesn't feel that healthy. Whereas when I'm really training hard, I just get this sense of cleanness in my mind that then carries over and cascades throughout the whole day. And I think I've known that from a young age. And I find with martial arts, because I think it's probably an element of it's added in a level of learning that I'd not had for a while physically. That I think that's the reason why I've become so hooked. Like bodybuilding, I'm not had to learn anything new. I'm just doing more of the same. Whereas with martial arts, it's a whole new ballgame that I've enjoyed expressing my body in a different way, and I've realized how much I have to learn. Like I can't, kicking naturally doesn't come naturally. I'm not rhythmic.
Dancing.
Don't have much balance. Can't dance. So there's so much stuff. Like tomorrow we're going for a salsa class. I don't know if I told you.
Oh no, you
we're going to salsa class tomorrow because as soon as we finished on Friday night, and then we went out on Saturday night, and it was someone's 40th, and there was dancing involved. And I was like, what do you think? Let me see if I can do some moves. And she's like, oh, I need to start teaching you, don't I? I was like, yeah, I think now's the time. Yeah. So then I said to her the next day, I was like, why don't we do a salsa class? Because I was thinking like my next fitness journey feels like it's going to be learning how to actually move my body and express it. And I want to be super fit, which also all of that ties nicely into Muay Thai as well.
Yeah.
So that's sort of, I don't know, the long-winded answer of where I think I got my obsession from is because it's given me a new learning curve to sort of ride on.
I think,
it might be completely different for you though.
Well, yeah, I think the physicality definitely plays into it for me as well. Why did I get obsessed with it? I don't know. I haven't even completed my the first phase in terms of like the transformation yet. For me, this was more just like another step on the journey. But yeah, it has been all encompassing for me as well. But I think maybe I've like tied the two together. I can see this as like just another step on that path. And I guess I'm still. It came at a good time for me. I kind of like forced it through because I was like, actually, I've been doing like the grind. I'm in the grind stage or approaching the grind stage. It's a good time to kind of like push myself again to the limits. I've been doing the routine of like 4 days split, getting my cardio in, and that was like pushing that higher and higher. And I was getting to the point where I was like, okay, drop calories now, in order to like maintain the fat loss. And then it was like, okay, cool. Now let's see what happens. Like let's shake things up with a little bit of Muay Thai. That turned into obsessed with.
How much weight have you lost since starting Muay Thai?
So when did we start? Like November. So in November, I was probably like 75, I think.
Really? No, we came up
a bit lower than that, maybe. Oh, yeah, 73, 74.
We went to Thailand at 73, 74.
Yeah, and I fought.
Were you kind of there before going to Thailand as well?
I think 74 before going to Thailand.
Okay, cool.
And then it dropped down to like, remember there was one day I weighed in at like 72 kilos in like.
Was that in Thailand?
In Thailand.
Yeah.
And now I'm at like 70 and a half. And now I'm back to like, okay, now I need to like focus on the kind of
body composition
again. So I don't know I don't know why I got obsessed with it. I kind of just did it, just like everything just fit together.
Yeah.
I really like martial arts, right? I really like combat sports and all that kind of stuff. So for me, it was like an easy thing to just get hyper focused about.
There's a lot of history going, intertwined, a lot of spirituality intertwined. And you sent me a book. I can't remember when exactly. It might have been when I had a really bad session.
You did.
It was that one bad session.
Yeah,
right?
you had one bad session. I was like, this guy needs a book.
The worst session of the whole camp.
Yeah.
I don't know what was going on. I couldn't hit anything.
Yeah.
And the next day you sent me that book in the post called The Book of Five Rings, which, over this last 8 weeks, so I've read like various chapters each day. And I think when I read it, I could just see like Buddhism, Zen. Is it Zenism? Is it that thing? It's not, is it? Nah. I'm making up things, all right? Taoism, sorry.
Taoism, yeah.
Yeah. Various elements of Buddhism, Taoism, I sort of intertwined into samurai fighting.
Yeah.
And how they use swords or how they used to kill people with swords. But the mindset and the way of life approach to the whole thing. And if you just replace swords with elbows, punches, knees, whatever the thing is, the same thing applies right now. And it's like there's no new real teachings, are there? They're all just
there's like the power of the old teachings. So yeah, I think part of it for me was physicality, and it fit in with that whole plan. But then when I you kind of like mentioned that you're going to be sponsoring the icanyoucantoo thing, I think that the altruistic element also kind of kicked in for me. Like, I could make this like a values-based thing, social mobility and things like that are something that I'm quite passionate about. And I was able to link like, why am I doing this with something like that? So I think that helped me like drive through and like kind of get into like the mindset that I have to do this. I have to do the training. It has to be all encompassing because there's a higher purpose here. Like the money that I'm going to raise is going to, help some families, help kids that are struggling. So that really kind of like helped me get into it.
Why is social mobility important to you?
I think for me, it's just like, the kind of area that I grew up in and like the people that were around me. I often think what was different about the way that me and my sister grew up, that we were able to like kind of go on and lead like very different lives to some of the people that grew up in the town that I grew up in. And, part of that was down to like my parents were maybe like quite aware of things and like pushed us to like study hard, like every Asian parent does. So I don't know, I'm quite passionate about it because I want to kind of like create equal access for those that don't have it. And like I really like the work that icanyoucantoo does, because it's basically all based around that, right? Like if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Yeah.
So I think the passion just stems from like a sense of like giving back to the places that I grew up in, and like helping people like lift themselves out of that. And then, there's the concept like Medita, around like vicarious joy. Like, it will make me happy if I see someone else that I was able to like empower to go on and lead a big, a successful life, or like lift themselves out of a situation that they otherwise wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
So it's all based around that concept.
Yeah. I remember mine was coming back from Kenya in 2019. I just delivered this like body transformation seminar. And on the way back, I had this idea of like, well, why don't we, surely there's another Steve Jobs out there who just doesn't have the access or the resources or the coaching or the mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, well, maybe we can, we can try and create access, support, mentoring for villages in Africa. And then that sounds like a nice idea, but I thought that logistically, I don't have the framework to be able to execute that, plus all the red tape and etc. And then it was only when I had a chance conversation with a client who was working for a different organization,
mm-hmm.
and she was telling me about what they do, and I was like, this is exactly what I've been looking to help with, but it's in London. And I didn't realize until just the extent of the problem in London. Like, it's not just the case of there being like a little bit happening sort of in the outskirts, but it's the wealth gap's getting bigger and bigger, and the opportunity gap's getting bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
But when I saw and then I came across icanyoucantoo, and I thought, this is exactly what I've been wanting to do abroad. But the bigger problem is actually where, just down the road from where I live. So that's what made the choice to support icanyoucantoo really obvious. And then we just continued to do so. And I think collectively we've raised, over, is it what, I in the end it ended up just under 9K.
Yeah. So
I think you've added what, 3K?
Something like that, yeah. So
yeah, £12,000, not bad, right?
Not bad, yeah.
Not bad.
Having a bit of fun in the ring, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it all came in the last week as well.
Yeah. Which was interesting. I know we've been like pushing. I guess I didn't actually like push it out there until like right at the end. I really didn't expect to like raise that much.
Well, I got to Sunday before the fight, and I was like, look, I've only raised a couple £100, and I need to raise 5,000. So I said to myself, how do I raise £5,000 in 5 days? So create a plan Sunday morning, spent a few hours on it, and then the next thing you know, 5 days later, we're on £9,000.
Yeah.
Well, that's not bad. Not a bad little, not a bad little plan.
Yeah. I don't know, it's really good going. So hopefully, we can see like the fruits of that in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, absolutely.
It goes live. So you got baby on the way. How did you like kind of balance? So you got like you got the business, you got the baby on the way. How did you find time to train with all of those factors playing in? Like, the business is not easy to run.
Yeah.
Preparing for a baby is not easy, and then on top of that, you've dusted in first Muay Thai fight with 3 months training. And then what was your game plan for that?
Well, the funny thing is, like, on the night of the fight, it was 17th of March, and I registered to white collar email list on 17th of December.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I registered knowing I was going to sign up for it. They just hadn't opened the spots. And I thought to myself, this wasn't even part of the plan in the year. Like, the plan wasn't including a Muay Thai fight. It was to try something new, but not actually go out and do something as all in as this. And obviously there was a shift in priorities. Like, I had to move things around. I had to make training a bigger priority than potentially it should have been for that long, given the timing. At the same time, I was thinking about it earlier. I was like, you said you can train as much as you like, but once you get in the ring, it's out of your control. I thought, well, it's actually great training for a baby, right? You can get as ready for the baby as you like. But once it happens, once the baby arrives, it's completely out of my control. Like, I can't control if the baby's going to cry or not. Can't control what she's going to do, when she's going to wake up. So I thought the way I started justifying it to myself was, this is perfect baby training. That was the way I sort of like spun it myself.
Spun it, yeah.
But also the timing was perfect, because getting towards the end of fight camp, I was pushing myself so much. I was pulling away from other areas in my life. And Chani did say to me, look, we need to shift gears soon now. I said, just give me to the end of the week, and I'm all yours. The Saturday after the fight, it was like, all right, hit me with the list now. What do we need to do? And I think there's definitely been a switch in my head to now shift gears towards the baby. But I do feel that sentiment. I know we made a joke out of it, but that sentiment does sort of like stand in that I have no idea how the baby's going to be. It's the first one, so it's always meant to be the hardest, right? But I feel like I'm in the best place to handle whatever comes at me, because I said to Chani, I was like, it might be hard, but I don't feel like scared or anything. I don't feel like, I'm not gonna be able to sleep, not gonna be able to do this, not gonna be able to do that. I'm really excited for it, and I think it's gonna be completely fine. I said as long as I know a few of the technicalities, like how to change a nappy, just the things that you need to know.
Technicality.
The rest of it should fall into place.
Just like a switch kick, isn't it?
Yeah, just it's like a switch kick, right? You've got to learn the technique, do it a few times, and it should be good as gravy. But in terms of like time management, I think there's never it's the old cliche. There's never a perfect time to do these things. But some things that I did that really helped were just spending like some time on Sunday planning what I'm going to do in the week. Very simple stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Actually prioritizing it. Like I said no to quite a few socials. I said not low to a lot on late nights because I'd rather wake up early and just train for a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
That to me was a priority, and I preferred that. I think there's something to be said for crafting your social circles better. I think that was very interesting for this specific quarter. I think we spent more time with each other this quarter than we've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Made a lot of new friends, created a new community, and that makes training easier because then suddenly instead of like, you want to go grab food, it's like, now do you want to go train together? Or do you want to go hit pads? Do you want to go spar? Like, then you just, it made socializing, ticking that box with training one piece. So I think there's a lot to be said for reviewing your social circles and really auditing them closely, because you can find if that's out of sync, it's going to make achieving your goals harder. Because if that wasn't the case, firstly, it would have been a lonely journey.
Yep.
But secondly, it would have just been harder.
Yeah, I agree.
Whereas this kind of, it filled that social bucket and that relationship and that, guy time. Every guy needs guy time, right?
Yeah.
It's really important. Getting attacked by flies.
Yeah, man. I don't know where these flies are coming from. Yeah.
Every guy needs guy time, right? And I think that's really important. Like, so when you combine it with something like fighting, you get a lot of that at the same time. So you kind of fill that bucket. And I found that the more I was training, the better I was getting, and more productive I was becoming in business.
Okay.
Like clean ideas, clean execution, less faff. Like, especially when you're your own boss or you have a lot of flexibility in your day, you can end up just finding work for the sake of finding work. When I knew I've got to train 3 hours a day, I just got to compress my work and just focus on the essentials.
Yeah, you're becoming hyper focused.
Yeah,
I think for me as well, there's a certain element of that as well. Like I just been like laser like focus because I knew that I wanted to train 3 hours, no time to faff around. Like crafting your environment. So even on the social side of things, said no to a bunch of stuff. And it feels like it's quite empowering doing something like that because you know that you're improving yourself and you're kind of like doing this for a reason. And it kind of, I agree with that. It like unlocks this kind of like laser like focus in you. So like, I was chatting to someone just now actually as I left my office. And he was saying that he wants to try it out. And I gave him that exact thing that, you should definitely try something like this out because it unlocks this like laser like focus that I don't think that you get from like many other things, unless like you get it from like physical things. You get it from physical challenge. Yeah, I don't think you can get it from like studying really hard.
No,
this is something else.
Because when you're studying really hard, you can lose focus. You can fall asleep. You can pretend you're studying, but you're not studying. You can't pretend you're training, but not training.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you get smacked in the face. You can't. So I think it puts you in that environment where you have to level up. And I think if you combine that with living in accordance with your values and your priorities and what you actually enjoy doing, you find yourself living at the edge. You find yourself like every day, there's a little bit of fear in your life, because in a good way, because you're pushing the absolute limits with probably some element of your career, your relationships, and your health. And when you're pushing the limits on all three, with one of them probably leading the way, it creates a very exciting and fulfilling life, in my opinion, because I think you just get a level of sharpness that otherwise gets blunt in a lot of people. And when you're operating with a blunt sword, so to speak, it just starts cascading across all areas of your life. You start getting comfortable. You start taking your foot off the gas. You start getting sloppy. You start getting lazy. You start falling into addictions. You start resorting to food. The crutches come out, etc. I think Ivan on the team said to me, there's some new research coming out that's saying the more fulfilled you are in your life, the easier it is to stick to your diet, which I think is really interesting. And it makes so much sense, doesn't it?
That's really interesting. just touching back on like a point there that you made about like leveling up, and earlier on we like talked about like stoicism and like reflecting back. You kind of like we had this walk in Thailand, and you kind of like touched back on like, you know, why like going back to like why you did something like this. You spoke about fear, and like you want to go into that, and like why you kind of like you felt like you needed to overcome this before the baby was here.
Well, I think this was like that. It'll always be remembered as like a memorable walk for me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you even remember the conversation.
Yeah,
but for me, it was like a really like important walk because we were walking back from training one. Well, it's probably from dinner.
Yeah.
Walking back home, and we were talking about being a natural fighter or not natural fighter. And you were saying that you'd always been a natural fighter. You know, you'd had fights at university and school and after university or whatever. Maybe not after university. But for you, like, fighting was not a new thing. This was just in a controlled environment where I don't know if it's worse or not worse, because there's an element of people are preparing for this, right? So I don't know you can maybe review that. But I'd not been a natural fighter. Like, I'd not really, I didn't get into scruffs. I didn't really have those experiences. So for me, there was an element of this fear that I needed to overcome, from doubting whether I could be a fighter or whether I could fight if push came to shove.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was younger, I think I was maybe 15. I remember very clearly. It was like November 2007, and I got mugged. And after I got mugged, I decided to take up boxing. You know, it's very like a teenage thing to do, isn't it? You get mugged and you take up boxing.
Yeah.
And as a skinny fat kid, felt like I was quite a timid, weak guy. And I started boxing, and I did a few sessions. I actually did it for about 8 months. And then the last month or so, we started sparring. So he said, "Oh, you're ready to spar?" I said, "All right, get in the ring." And the first round I did was fine. And the second round, and he was a lot bigger guy, which is why when Ian said he's got a guy who's like 12 kilos heavier, I empathized with him. I was like, I remember this.
Yeah.
And this guy pummeled me. Like I felt like every punch I hit was doing nothing. And I felt like every punch he hit was sending me flying.
Mm-hmm.
And mentally, that was a really weird experience to have when I was like 15 or so. I think I was 16 by the time that happened. And I just felt like I had no power in me to inflict any damage. But this guy, every punch he hit was sending me flying.
Mm-hmm.
And after that sparring session, I never went back. Like, I never went back to the gym, never went back to the session. And I only thought about this memory the day of the fight. The morning of the fight, I woke up and that memory just kind of came in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, that was like when I was 15, 16. There's definitely some strong link with why this fight suddenly became really important to me, and why I wanted to prove to myself that I could get in the ring and fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you saying on the walk, was like, yeah, you've done it in different areas. I was like, yeah, but those are areas I have always had control over to an extent. I mean, you can't control what happens in business. You can't control. But I've always had the grit to push through whatever in other areas. But this to me still felt different. When you give me those examples, I was like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But I still need
to
do
make
it.
me feel better.
I still need to do it, right? I still need to do it. And when I was that skinny guy, I thought boxing would help me kind of feel more confident in myself.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really get that feeling from anything but when I built muscle and achieved my own body transformation. I started to build more confidence in myself, because what I lacked in size and I had in timidness, I suddenly felt a bit bigger. You start getting a little bit more like, I don't know if respect is the right word, but
I think you just hold yourself differently.
You hold yourself differently. Yeah, you walk around differently.
Mm-hmm.
People don't pick on you as much. Because as guys are, like, you start, when you're a teenager and people punch you to give you a dead arm. I was getting dead arms all the time. You get winded, all that stuff. But you felt like you couldn't really do much back. That's how I felt. Like, I remember being on the bus home and getting punched by your mates, the bigger guys especially, and I'll be coming back with a bruised arm or winded, and I couldn't do shit back. Like, I felt like I had no power back.
Yeah.
When I started training, getting a bit more size, they probably that sort of stuff stopped happening, because we were like, oh yeah, he's hench. But in my mind, I'm like, yeah, but I don't know if I can actually inflict any damage.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? So weight training gave me that, but then there was always this thing at the back of my mind of like, I always came back to boxing for some reason in my head. I never really knew why. And I think thinking about it more over the last week, it's good. It can only have been this reason. It's like I needed to almost face that teenager, timid teenager, and show that it's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I told you like a couple hours before the fight, I was like, yeah, this is in my head. And I didn't think about it in the fight, but when I came out of it, the first thing I thought of was like, I didn't back down.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hesitate. I didn't let like any of the sweeps or anything.
Yeah,
I just kept moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Looked back at the videos. I never stepped back.
Mm-hmm.
I never did any flinches. I never like my opponent. Like fair play to him. Like he had a lot of heart and he took a lot of beating. But he was also like turning around. He like spent over a few times, spun his head around, flinched a lot. And that's just natural, right? Like, but I'm proud that I didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even though he hit me, even though he smashed me in the ribs, threw me down, I never flinched.
Mm-hmm.
And you sent me a video a few weeks before the fights with someone who talked about that, saying even if in your fight, never flinch because that shows weakness. So, and I wasn't thinking in the ring, I'm going to do this, but it's just like that natural, like, I'm just going to keep moving forward. I'm just going to take it. Yeah, I didn't block anything, and I'm paying for it right now. But I'd rather eat the kicks than flinch and be like, oh, this hurt me.
Yeah.
So I think coming out the other side, that's the thing I'm most proud of. And I feel like I've closed that loop in my head, that confidence of not being able to inflict damage is gone. And weirdly enough, in the last few weeks, when I walk around the streets now, I know this sounds really weird. I'm
mean streets of Ealing.
I'm walking around the mean streets of Ealing, probably West Ealing, not Ealing Broadway. There is this I have this newfound quiet confidence.
Okay. You trust in your ability.
That I trust in my ability to, I'm not just like all show, no go now.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like for years I was all show, no go.
Okay.
Whenever we used to do like, let's say for example, we did that jiu-jitsu in Thailand.
Yeah.
I was all over the place, right?
Yeah.
But I've tried a few of those like things in the past and I just felt like I was all show, no go. Whereas now I feel like I've actually got a bit of go.
Okay. Yeah, which
but there's also an element of walking around with a bit of quiet confidence that if it absolutely came down to it, I can inflict damage. And like I think I've got a good we're only 3 months in, right? So
yeah,
relatively speaking, it's pretty good. But I don't know, and it kind of comes back to that concept. We've been discussing the Buddha heart and demon hands. In that you can explain it better, but for me, it's yes. I've always had the confidence. I've had the confidence to back myself in being able to do things and see things through. And if things get hard, I push through. But this is like a different type of confidence that, like, I don't know if it completes it, but it's added another layer. Okay. And I'm excited to see what that does in other areas of your life when I do bring it back. But
yeah, I just wanted to bring that to the surface because I think when people kind of like see you and your personality out there, whatever, and you got a good physique, all that, they probably think, you're all over the podcast. But the Akash that I know, I've known you to be a much quieter person and you're much louder now. It's interesting that you're also conscious of those things and you've been able to link in that incident that happened to you when you were 15 and how much for it to come up now when you're about to have a baby. You kind of said we talked about, what was it, fitness, fighting and family or something like that with your 3 F's. And I was very interested in the fact that fighting had was in that.
Family, finance, fitness.
Family.
Family, finance, fighting. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, why is fighting even come in? And when you told me this story, I was like, okay, now I understand. You want to prepare for the next phase of your life. I think there's something in there about that level of introspection that that this is a kind of thing that's been hanging over your personality.
Well, it's interesting you say that about the quiet and the loud, because a lot of people think that they see my videos and they see me putting myself out there, but it doesn't come naturally to me. And I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't like this.
No.
And there's still an element there. It's just been repetition. I got a year into business and I realized I had to start doing videos because no one else was doing videos. So I was like, I've got to actually get on camera now. And that scared me, right? I have to constantly put myself out there. It drained me for the whole day. And then even just simple things like public speaking. And, I spoke on stage 2 weeks ago to over 100 people. And it wasn't like the audience was completely blacked out, so you can't even see who you're speaking to. It's like I can see everyone's face, and I'm absolutely bricking it the whole for the hours leading up to it. But the level of how much I brick it is less and less and less and less each time, right? But this whole fighter thing was interesting that you even picked up on the fact that I said fighting was one of my main priorities for the year. I hadn't even booked the fight yet, but yeah, it was a priority of my year. And there's that muggy incident, but there's also just the element. I think a lot of it is actually just not being able to carry myself when I was at school. Not being able to, I didn't get bullied, but I felt like I was an easy target in many aspects, like the dead arms, getting winded, just being pushed around, not being able to, I remember rugby matches, I'd be thrown around, just not being able to hold my own. And weight training gave me a bit of people would look at me differently. But in my head, I was still that skinny, timid guy.
There's another reason that I kind of wanted to dig into that is because I guess because we've linked this to the kind of icanyoucantoo kind of partnership, that I think there's a lot of people that grow up in those kind of environments who, when they enter professional work or an environment that's not that, they have those same feelings of not feeling confident in those environments because they feel alien. So I think that's for me, that's the key thing to draw out there, is that the confidence, the kind of outwardly show of calmness or poise and being able to hold yourself in a room for 100 people or more than 100 people. They're all learned skills. It's not that somebody that grows up in a different way to you naturally has those abilities. They also learn to be like that. So it's just kind of opening people's eyes that you can learn to be like that. And you're testament to that. You were so different to the guy that I knew in 2010, coming into you.
What was different?
Even, I think I commented on it, even when I see you in a social setting now, you actively seek out conversations with people, or very comfortable speaking to people. Whereas in 2010, if it was a party, if it was a room full of people, you were going to be standing on the side. Now you're center of attention, and you're walking around and almost turning to other people, who else can I chat to? It's nice to see, but it's it's been a transformation.
It's interesting you mentioned that as well, because Chandy and my other friend Dan also said to me recently, he said, you're way more social recently. I was like, you really reckon? You're either up for going to social events for once, which is normally not the case. But also when you're speaking to people you don't normally talk to, or when you're in a social setting, you're actually talking to people. Whereas before you find any reason to get out of the room.
Yeah.
But I don't know why what's changed either.
I used to be someone that was super social, and then had a period where I wasn't, and now even for me, I feel like what you just spoke about, when you're walking through down the street, you feel different.
Yeah,
I definitely feel that as well. So I don't know, maybe there is something in the kind of back to the physicality of it all, when you can totally trust in your body. Then you kind of naturally enter this state of calm. So that kind of Buddha heart, demon hands kind of concept again.
Well, what is that concept? Maybe explain it.
So the idea behind that is there's no virtue in being incapable of acts of chaos and then not doing them. There's no virtue in that. There's only virtue in being capable of acts of chaos, but being in complete control and not acting on them. And that's what gives you the virtue and lets you demonstrate the Buddha heart. Because often you find people that are fixated on the spiritual path, or the calmness, or I'm so well behaved, I'm this, I'm that. But they've never explored the other side of human existence. And so it's how can you be virtuous when you're making these statements about peace and being calm, when really you're incapable of the other side? So you don't understand the full human spectrum. You cannot relate to someone that's had to fight this way out of a war, or walk across a border to escape, all that kind of stuff. How can you possibly relate to someone like that when you've not lived that? But you can preach this sense of calm, or this sense of spirituality, and why they should do social good, or so I think is that's the concept that I'm trying to
So how do you orchestrate that in your life?
So I think the way that so exploring something like this, so you have to take your body to extreme test yourself like in extreme physical situations, train yourself, like take your body to being able to fight in a ring. It doesn't have to be fighting in a ring. It could be like, train yourself to like run a triathlon or something like that. Take your body to the extreme and then preach as much as you want about staying calm and all that kind of stuff. Because you have to, I don't know, what am I trying to get at? Like you have to kind of like prove that
your mind is capable of pushing past that physical suffering.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because you can't replicate that, right? When your body's screaming at you and yet you can still keep calm, but also push through.
Mm-hmm. So just touching on that, on the like kind of pushing through. So you asked me how you're feeling, I think a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, the last like couple of months have just been like an onslaught. So I've been living this kind of like life of like 12-hour work days, 3 hours of training in the evening, wake up 5:30 a.m., go to bed at like 11:30 p.m. When you factor in all the commute and all that kind of stuff, then training like 2, 3, 4, 5 hours sometimes on the weekends. We went on holiday, but we were training 5 hours a day. It was relentless. And then there was this sense that in the build up to the fight, we both like made these comments where we were like, I can't wait to get back to like a much more normal routine. But then bam, as soon as the fight's finished, I'm like, I'm going to the gym.
Yeah.
Right. And then like, I took Sunday off, and like even Monday I went to the gym. Today I've taken off, and I've already texted Samir today saying, what's your availability like on Saturday? I need to get back in the ring. So I don't know, like, what is it about this kind of like, what do you think there is in like pushing yourself to like physical extremes? Why do we do this?
Yeah, what I've actually found is like, I've actually found that the relentless onslaught that the sort of level up to like increasing your hours of training suddenly became a new norm that actually felt quite, towards the end, actually felt quite sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
Weirdly, like obviously there's elements that weren't sustainable, but a lot of it started to become sustainable, like running a couple times a week, training a couple times a week, Muay Thai, training a couple teams weight. And I started to really enjoy the rhythm. I was like, with or without a fight, this could continue. And that was my plan.
Mm-hmm.
Straight after the fight, I was just going to go back to that same routine and just maybe taper it just a tad so I didn't feel that higher level of fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the ribs had a different idea. And I got a theory on the ribs thing. I was like, that's my body's way of saying, go and focus on the baby for a bit.
Yeah.
So it's forcing me to stop training for a bit. But in my head, I was like, that feels very sustainable. So when it comes to like pushing yourself to the extreme, why do we do it? I think some people just love it. Like just love it.
Which is so weird. Is that love doing stuff like that.
Why do we push through the injuries, the knocks, the fatigue? I've thought about this a lot over the years, and then my answer in the end is just like, because I love it. Like, that's it. I just love it. And I think I think certain people just think that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we get drawn to those people in life. Like we get drawn, like certain people will enjoy listening to this. Some people will just be like, these guys are nutters.
Mm-hmm.
But some people will be like, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll get it in their own way because it's just that relentless pursuit of improving yourself and just doing hard shit over and over again in life, because we're only here for a limited amount of time. We might as well see what we're capable of and see what we're capable of in an area we enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean you need to become the richest man on earth. Like, there's so many ways you can push yourself to that absolute limit,
mm-hmm.
because there's so many avenues in life that it can be expressed in,
mm-hmm. outside
of just the typical one you hear about most of, which is financial or career based.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's just so many areas you can explore the extremes of human capability, and I think in that extreme you can find that peace and that sense of calm that I think we're all looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And we just got different roads that all lead to the same top of the mountain.
Living at the pinnacle.
It's literally it.
For people that like, I don't know, maybe we can like delve into it.
Just on that, like, my friend Sham, who's obviously a mutual friend of ours, we train every Saturday with legs, and most of the time when we're talking, when we're training, we're just talking about high performance. We're talking about things that are going on, things he's pushing towards, things I'm pushing towards, and every now and then he'll always tell me about, I'll be trying to explain to this person about why I do this, but they just keep saying to me, work less or do this less. And I'm like, yeah, some people just don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, people either get it or they don't get it. There's no in between. You either
Do you think it's like that? That's what I was gonna get.
I think so. I think there's just either people that get this sort of like way of talking and being, and people that don't. And the people that don't will just think we're nutters, weird, or just live a boring life.
Yeah.
We're there like, oh my God, this is the best thing. Like,
Yeah.
This is life, right?
Yeah.
It's living at the edge, and it's living in like in a way that there's always growth coming.
Mm-hmm. I didn't. Yeah, I think I kind of find it hard to digest that it's not something that can be learned. Because I'm a firm believer that anything can be learned. I think. So how do you like? So what is it that we could say that would like convert the?
So there's two things. I think the biggest one. The first is the social circle element. So the environment. You just get exposed. When you get exposed to it a lot, and I think it can't just be stuff you see on social media. It's not just motivational clips and things like. I don't think that works. I think you need to be around it. The energy. There's an energy, and you need to be around it consistently. Because again, you can get hyped up for a day, then you're back to square one. That's why things like Tony Robbins seminars get packed out, but they're still packed out every single time with the same people probably going back, because people get hyped up and they don't do anything about it.
To discipline.
Yeah, or they don't actually change their life.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing really comes back to is living in accordance with what you enjoy doing and your values and your priorities. I think that's really the key, because when you do that, then you're like, I just want to dive deeper and deeper into this. But it's very hard to find those. A, because you may not have experimented enough and gone on that search enough. Or B, because you're too scared to let go of the other bits. I think when you really dive into that, it just gets so exciting.
Yeah, okay. So
for me, I know I feel amazing when I'm training hard, when I'm spending time with people, the few people that I really enjoy being with, and when I'm doing creative work in my business. Like, those three things: the physical health, few people, and creative work. And then I just got to dive deeper and deeper into those, and then that's it. Then you can experience that feeling of success every day, or every week, rather than waiting for that. Oh, when this happens, like for example, the fight we both drew, right? We didn't know the draw was a thing, but I don't think it really has affected our psyche. We're not like, oh, we drew. Like obviously that competitive nature of both of us are like, oh, we could have won, should have won, etc. But we're not there like sulking and crying. Even if we lost, I'm sure we'd still be sitting here like saying the same things, because it's that whole experience of the journey. And I think when you're living in a way you just love, you will experience that success feeling on a daily basis. And then what we're talking about doesn't become weird. Then it's like, then you start sharing your own experience.
So there's something, I don't know. I'm always like keen that somebody takes something away from this. For me, it's like the key things that you need to do in order to like start thinking about it, or start thinking in this way. If you're not, is like reassess your values. Are you actually living a life that aligns to your values, or draw out your values and I don't know, are they the right values, or are they kind of like constructs of your environment? And then like look at your environment and be like, what's feeding you and what's taking away. And so after you've done that exercise, then you kind of look into, okay, now how can I push myself? And by pushing yourself, you don't need to do like things as extreme as we do. You can start with like a small push, right? Like it could just be like, okay, I'm going to be disciplined, and I'm committing to spending 30 minutes each day taking a walk. Or it could be, that could be as low impact as that, or it could be, I'm going to commit. I have a business idea. I'm going to spend 1 hour every day for the next 4 weeks working on this business idea and see how far I can take it. Things like that, right?
I think you just got to be able to look in the mirror with your top off.
Okay. Yeah.
And just be like, am I actually? Am I the person I want to be? Am I actually going for this, or am I just living? Am I just cruising through this?
Yeah.
And I think that will solve most of it, because you got to back yourself, right? And self-esteem comes from doing those actions repeatedly, and only you know deep down whether you're actually doing it or not. And I think you just got to stare yourself with your top off. And I think that's important though, because that's a big part of it, in my opinion. Yeah. And obviously, if you're on the journey, that's a big part of it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because you don't want to be hiding behind like a fancy suit, because I think a lot of people do that, right? Yeah. So I think then you can start seeing like, where's the disconnect? What's the gap I need to bridge? There's a really good book I enjoyed reading last year. I think of often is The Way of Superior Man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can read it if you're a man or a woman. And it really dives into the masculine and feminine energies and how, as masculine energies specifically, we're very mission oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Females are more love and emotional, love oriented and relationship based. But he talks a lot about living at the edge and really riding the knife's edge of life and just stripping it all back to sort of really see where you want to go to and if where you are now is where you actually want to be. Now, this sort of stuff, like the only thing with listening to this at the moment is like you might think, oh, I've got to do the work to change this. I've got to now reassess my life. But I think that the thing you said is the key thing, in that you just got to pick one thing to go all in on. My bias is always body transformation, because I think if you transform your body, you'll sort out loads of the shit on the way, and then you can do whatever you want after.
Mm-hmm.
You just happen to have done a Muay Thai fight before that. But at the same time, you kind of didn't, right? You lost 35 kilos, then said, all right, I'm going to do a Muay Thai fight. So you exactly. This was the vehicle.
For me, this is like the trophy, right?
You could have done a Muay Thai fight 105 kilos.
I could have, but probably not a good one, right?
Yeah, it'd be a bit messy, right?
Yeah.
Might have had a heart issue in the ring.
Well, I don't know, man. I often like talk about this with people. Like, there is something in the psychology. Even when I was massive, I told you, right? Like, one of the triggers for this is like, obviously, like my nephew and stuff. So like, I want to be fit because I want to live a life with my nephew, similar to like how my dad always had energy to play with us, no matter like how hard he was working and all that kind of stuff. So there's that element of it. But I think that within me, there's always been this like ability to just push myself to extremes. So even when I was like 100 kilos plus, that's when I climbed like Crib Gok. And that I was on Crib Gok thinking I'm 100 kilos here. I'm holding these rocks, trying to like go on this like knife edge. It's like a grade 1 arete, and I was like, what the hell am I doing up here? Like 100 kilos. I had to have total trust in my body. I think I messaged you after this.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. That was a big turning point.
Big turning point, because I was like, I'm actually on this mountain. I have to have 100% trust in my body to see me through. Otherwise, I'm going to fall off and die. Like people, like I think a few weeks either side of me climbing it, a couple of people fell off and like they died. So I don't know. What am I getting at there? I think I was only able to unlock the physical transformation because I had like done those tests as well.
Yeah.
And what am I trying to get at here? Sorry, your people are gonna have to like edit this and like smooth it out a bit. But I think the point that I'm getting at is because I had taken myself through like smaller tests in the build up to doing this massive transformation, that doing those smaller tests and being able to overcome things like that is what unlocked the ability to like make that decision and say I'm going all in, and I'm like letting go of the social circle. I'm committing this as like my top 3 priorities in life, if not the number 1 priority. All of that took like a series of mini tests to get there. And one of those was climbing Crib Gok.
Yeah.
That was the trigger point. So we often talk about this, like, what was the flash moment? It wasn't a flash moment. It was a series of smaller tests so one was like unlocking the psychology, first of all, that I will test myself. I am a person that pushes limits, and then I turn that towards pushing personal limits and like pushing self. Then it was like doing a series of smaller tests, and then that gave me the confidence or like inner like ability to say, okay, now I can go all in and I will 100% commit to doing this. And I've got the discipline because I've shown it by I was disciplined enough to like take myself over that mountain. I had these things that I could call upon.
It's confidence. Yeah,
confidence, right? I had the proof.
Yeah.
I wasn't just talking about it. And then that's where I am where I am now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What's your deepest fear?
Deepest fear. I think there's an image that I have of like what I want to be like. And that doesn't mean just like physically. I mean like all around, all encompassing. Perhaps it's too much of a public forum to share like exactly what it is, but like I have a vision of my life, family, like all elements that you can like feed into it. And so like my deepest fear is like not achieving that. It's the fear of failure. I think that's like, is that what you wanted to get out, or are you talking about like heights and things like that?
No, that's. I don't ask about your fear of heights. Yeah.
I'm not scared of heights, but
it's funny. That's like, it's very similar to what I think. I guess fear of is. I have this like image I've had a few times where I get to the end of life, and I'm at like the gates of heaven.
Okay, it's not hell, yeah. It's always heaven. Okay,
the gates of heaven, and the guard has like a scroll, and on that scroll he has like what my life could have, what my life's plan was, and then he looks at that scroll, and then he compares it to what I did.
Okay,
and my biggest fear is that the gap is too wide.
Okay,
which is very similar to what you said.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
And I worry that I get to the end of it all, and I'm like, oh, that's what I was meant to do, but I did this instead, or I only did this. And again, there's many facets to that. Like, for example, one of my goals for the next quarter, and this is obviously not a goal that's only for the quarter, but it's pretty much for the rest of my life, is to give my daughter the best first 3 months on earth possible. Because I think it's a very formative period where you develop a bond and you can build that relationship. That's one part of it. Is like, obviously not just the first 12 weeks, but you get the sentiment I'm trying to get at. And I think my biggest fear is the mismatch there, which I guess is similar to what you said in that it's probably a fear of not reaching my potential of whatever that is meant to be. And I think we spend most of our life just trying to figure out what that is in many different mediums, whether it's business, whether it's Muay Thai fights, or whether it's deepening relationships. Because I think the more I progress into my marriage as well, I realize just the very act of being vulnerable and open with your wife is another challenge in itself. And another journey to go down where you're pushing yourself to more depths of communication, which isn't always easy. But the deeper you go, the more you experience what love and relationships can bring. So again, that's just another avenue, which I think one of my fears of actually having a child is, I often think about this, is like, am I gonna have that bond? I don't know if I remember hearing it once on a podcast where on this podcast, one of our clients, it was a client podcast, and he said his transformation allowed him to develop a connection with his children, because before that he felt very disconnected and he almost felt like a sense of resentment to his children. And it always stuck with me, and I thought that's really interesting, because I guess it's not really, as a guy who said it, it's not something people vocally say, right? And some of the antenatal classes they're talking about bring this up, in that some people struggle with that relationship at the beginning. And as not a very emotional guy myself, like I don't really have words of affection for people. I don't really say things like that.
I don't know, man. I got a couple cards off you.
Yeah, you got a couple cards off you. Yeah, you have. Yeah, I'm getting better though. I'm getting better over the years. That to me is like, Chinese sometimes like, yeah, you better say I love you to our daughter. I'm like, oh yeah, I hope so. That's like a different element of like strength, isn't it? It's a different strength, and it's a different avenue that I'm starting to see more and more of. So yeah, let's see.
That's really interesting.
The goal is to get to those gates and pass with flying colours.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Next fight?
I don't know. I've been like toying with this. I keep flip-flopping. I'm like, do I want to fight again? Shall I fight? I kind of want to carry on training for sure.
Yeah.
But right now, I don't think like fighting like fits with my lifestyle. I can't be walking around with a black eye.
Well, white collar boxing, right?
Yeah. But I don't know, like I don't know. It's just not a good look. And I think it's because people don't understand it. So they kind of like, there's a lot of assumptions that are made about fighters. But like, I know for a fact that people like that practice martial arts religiously. I've been around a lot of like the most like humble people that you've ever met. A lot of them like kind of deeply understand that whole like Buddha heart, demon hands kind of concept. They might not describe it in that way, but they do. And so I think often like people that practice like martial arts or are like have chosen fighting as a profession, they get given like bad rep, get like labeled as like, I don't know what they get labeled as, and I don't know. So there's something interesting in that as well. Like, how do you adapt society's view of?
Yeah, I mean, I can't relate to it just because you're obviously in the finance world and in boardrooms and around suits and stuff like that. So I've seen you once when you had a complete black eye. I can't imagine how that looked when you turned up to work. It's also a priority thing, I guess, right? You do have to devote an extra amount of attention, mental energy, when you're preparing for a fight, and that may just not be aligned with your priorities, and that's completely fine.
Well, how about you?
In my mind, October is when I want to fight again.
Okay.
Depending on when the dates are, if it's September, October, early November, I'll be fully game.
We can see a rematch.
Yeah, I've already called. Well, Adam called him out for a rematch, and he said he's game. So I just got to let White Collar know, set up the rematch, and let's get it done.
Yeah, that sounds like I think it would be good to see. And like, seeing him after the fight and stuff. Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, to be fair, he's a good guy. Yeah. And I gave him no attention before the fight.
Yeah. Same.
But afterwards, he's actually a really nice guy.
Yeah.
But he messaged me saying, "Oh yeah, I'll be telling my missus I'm ignoring Akash. I bet he's a nice guy, but I've got to keep. Otherwise, I don't want to get too friendly with him.
Yeah, because then you can't deliver the good.
It's true, isn't it? Yeah, it's true. So yeah, see, maybe it's a rematch, maybe it's another fight, but for me, I'm just excited to see where this journey goes now.
Okay.
And it's given me a new level of obsession on something that's not work, which I think it's actually been very healthy for me.
Yeah. I'm going to continue training, but again, that's just because it's played into my obsessions as well. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe, let's see.
Let's get that photo shoot done now.
Yeah, that's what it is. I need to get I reprioritize, and like for me, it's the aesthetics that I want to focus on now for like at least the next few months, and then we see where we go from there. And just get, I don't know. You're looking a bit big, so I need to humble you as well. We need to get some size.
Well, I'm wearing your shirts now.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting as well. This jacket that he's got, and he's always flexing now. My jacket. You might have seen another one in the videos as well. The Iron Paradise jacket that used to be mine as well.
Basically, I'm taking over your old wardrobe.
Yeah.